Referencing tenants is the difference between a successful, smooth tenancy and a bad tenancy with tenants who are from hell. In today's video, we are going to go into some of the key points around referencing, what you should look out for, and how you as a landlord can reduce the chances of taking bad tenants who are going to potentially cause problems within your property. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. My name is Ehsan Ahmed. Welcome to our channel. This video is brought to you in association with Right Room, London's leading HMO management company. So let's start with some of the questions that we've had. So as always, appreciate the questions that we do get from landlords, as well as just general questions that we get on our channel, and really helps with the production. So why is tenant referencing so important for landlords in London? Okay. So tenant referencing is incredibly important for landlords in London because without referencing, you have no idea as to the type of person you're letting into your property. You have no idea of the risk that you're taking. You have no idea of how they're going to be as a tenant. Are they going to pay rent on time? Are they going to pay rent at all? Are they going to look after the property, or are they going to damage it? Are they going to outstay their tenancy agreement? How have they reacted in sort of previous tenancies? The point of referencing is to go into that, to assign somebody a tenancy off the knowledge of the fact that you feel fairly comfortable that they're going to be a good tenant. Obviously, there's no guarantee. There's no 100% with any tenancy, but by doing the referencing, you mitigate your chances of a bad tenant. What are the key legal requirements for tenant referencing in 2025? So the main key requirements are right to rent checks. So especially if you're renting to people sort of outside of the EU, you'll get their share code. You will ensure that they have the right to rent in the UK, and that as a letting agent is a key component of something that you need to have. Alongside that, it's very important to get sort of the basic documentation that you would do. So whether that's whether you're using a third-party company for referencing or doing it yourself, it's very important to get sort of the basic proof of ID, proof of address, bank statements, landlord reference, employer reference. You have those 5 things, and in most cases, you will be okay. How can landlords assess affordability without discriminating against tenants? Okay, good question. So the easiest way is to be upfront. And just state that, you know, prior to viewing that, look, this particular property has XYZ salary affordability in terms of the type of tenants that we can afford. Do you fit into this criteria? So you're not necessarily asking them the exact salary that they're on, but you're understanding a salary range, you're declaring what you require for the property, and you're being upfront. If they say yes at that point, then they understand. Then they've understood. Obviously, if they say no, then it's no time wasted for both parties. What red flags should landlords look out for during the referencing process? Okay, that's a great question. I feel like the referencing process as a whole is a huge barometer in terms of, and an indicator as to the type of tenant that you're going to be letting into your property, which is obviously the aim of it. But more importantly, outside of the referencing itself, you have to look at sort of the smoothness of the referencing process. So if a tenant takes 24 hours to provide all their documentation and the communication is smooth, and there's no bumps, there's no problems within the referencing process, their attitude is good, the communication is nice, then typically, you know, it gives a good vibe, sets a good tone for the tenancy to move forward. If, however, you've got a tenant who doesn't provide documentation quickly, goes off the radar for 2 or 3 days, and referencing is taken sort of a week, even up to 10 days, that's worrying, because they're clearly not serious about the property. And even if they have put down a deposit, it gives you an indication as to the type of person they are, or the type of tenant that they're going to be, should I say. And on top of that, For example, we've come across certain instances where, we have we have a 72-hour turnaround, which means within 3 days, referencing should be completed and ready to go. If for any reason it's not, then at that point, there has to be a valid reason as to why it's not completed. If there is a valid reason, absolutely fine. But if somebody's just gone off the radar, then that's never a good thing. Right. Are employer references as important as rental history, and why? Yes, employer references are important, especially if they declare that they are employed. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily apply to a student. But if somebody is declared as employed, it's important to get the following. So get a copy of their contract, their payslip, and bank statement showing sort of salary coming in. If all of that's in hand, then everything should line up. And obviously, it's important to know that they have been employed for as long as they say they have been employed for. Okay, so typically, if somebody says they've been employed for 6 months, then the proof of that is within what I've just told you. How should landlords approach referencing for self-employed tenants or freelancers? In most cases, for self-employed tenants, if you can see that there is a contract in place of employment with somebody on a self-employed basis, absolutely fine. You'd treat them normally. You'd sort of see the contract length of that agreement. You'd see sort of what they've been earning on it, and you'd see if there's any likelihood of change within that. If not, then it sounds good. Freelancers, a little bit more tricky, because again, you can't really judge their income based on 1 month. You'd look at it over the year, and if they've only been in business for a year, it's a bit tricky. So in both cases, probably best to get a guarantor if you can. Having a guarantor in place just sort of solidifies the tenancy and puts you and the tenant in a better position. Is outsourcing tenant referencing worth it, and what are the costs involved? Love this question. We as a company do not outsource our tenant referencing, and that's actually one of our USPs. And the reason we don't do that is because I feel referencing companies that you do outsource to, they run off a metric. If you're £1 under a certain salary barometer, then, in some cases they'll reject you. But I feel like with a referencing process that's done in-house, you get a way better understanding of the tenant. You get a better understanding of their personality. And by doing it in-house and keeping the process in-house, you get an understanding of the flaws within the referencing process and an indication of the tenant within the referencing process. So overall, we have a better indication of whether or not that tenant's going to be a good fit for the property because of the referencing process and the fact that it's kept in-house. What are the risks of skipping tenant referencing or doing it properly? So the risks are profound. If you don't do tenant referencing or you skip it, that's, you're opening yourself up to a potential disaster. You've got no idea who you're letting into the property, and you're basically bluff, like you're playing a game of poker. It's madness. Never ever do that. My recommendation is always to do referencing. Try to go as detailed as possible. And if you find that the tenant does not want to provide certain documentation, don't change your need to rent a property or the urgency just because somebody's not willing to provide documentation. If you're rigid on what you need in terms of documentation, stick to that. If they can't provide it, it's better to lose a little bit more in terms of rent than to get a bad tenant in there. So that's my take on it. As always, guys, if you have any other questions or queries in regards to referencing or just landlord issues in general, feel free to reach out to us. Look forward to seeing you in the next video, and hope this was helpful. Thank you.